All right, before I go into like super depth about my beliefs and stuff, I think it's always important to understand and to know the person that's talking. So I'm going to read you my testimony. Um, I think it's important to understand what I've been through in order for you to kind of relate in an aspect that makes you maybe want to watch these videos. So my name is Tyler James Richards, born September 27th, 1991 in Pocomoke, Maryland. At that time, my mom was with my biological father, James Fox. He was an abusive drunk who would find any excuse to beat my mom. My mom was tired of it and finally drew up the courage to leave. A little bit later, my mom met my dad. They got married and he adopted us as his own. And me and my two older sisters and a younger brother moved down to California where my dad was stationed for the Navy. Eventually, we moved back up here to Washington State. My dad was quiet, and I very rarely saw him without a beer in his hand. When he drank, he would sometimes get angry, very angry. He never hit us or Mom, just things, including himself. When an argument would break out, us kids soon learned to stay in a room and try to drown out the noise of yelling and fists hitting walls. Many nights ended in tear-stricken sleep. All in all, my family was pretty normal. It soon became a war within me to overcome the out-of-control temper I had. One of my sisters turned to drugs. Cops became near friends of mine. It really hurt seeing my sister being high all the time, or handcuffed by a cop. My extended family has their problems too. I mean, don't get me wrong. My relatives are very loving and dear to my heart. But drinking and drunkenness are the norm when we all get together. And sometimes a fight would happen. I remember one time, my two older cousins took me upstairs to learn how to fight. They proceeded to punch me until one of my sisters finally came up and broke it up. It was all out of love. See, my cousin's version of love is fairly twisted. I will beat your head in so that way no one else does. And because I love you. I will throw rocks at cars and tell you it's okay. Because I love you. And when we steal and you get caught, I don't know you. Because I love you. It was different for me growing up. I didn't want that for my life. My mom took us to church consistently, no matter what we did. I soon turned to those guys and those men for fatherly figures. My name is Tyler James Richards, reborn, August 6th, 2003, at Black Lake Bible Camp in Washington. It was a one-week Bible camp my church took me to. That's when I learned finally to trust and turn to God. Halfway through the camp, we had a service where they made an altar call. They said that if we wanted God in our lives, to help us, to protect us, and to love us, like no one else could ever do, to come up. That God would never turn his back on us and always be there for you. I rushed to the front, wanting everything in this God. I gave my life to him and became saved that day. Just because I was now a Christian and chasing after God didn't make life any easier. In fact, it made it a whole lot harder. My house made me feel so uneasy. I would find any reason to stay away from home. I played sports and even became part of leadership in ASB. Not to lead people or to become popular. Not to voice my opinion or have some sort of special privileges. It was just to stay away from home. I learned to use the anger and hatred I had for sports and began to excel at them. I would start fights at home just so I had some anger to fuel my sport addiction. I started to hate my life, and it became all so confusing. From the outside, I was confident, friendly, loving, and someone you always wanted to be around. But inside I was dying, hating everything. It got so bad that a few times I would sit in my room with the biggest, sharpest knife I could find and wonder what life would be like if I wasn't in the picture. It didn't make sense to me why these things would happen to me. I mean, if God was in control, why would he let all these things happen? I found my calling to lead and pursued it. Leading is what I do best, but for some reason, I just couldn't get myself to continually chase after God and trust him. When things were finally looking good, only 2 fights a week, financial trouble starting to disappear, my mom became very unhappy. The woman that raised me and taught me my values soon shook the very foundation she created. My mom is a workaholic. Many times she stayed 4 or 5 hours later just to get a few more things done at work. At that point, we were raising ourselves. Mom started acting just a little different and started hanging out more and more with the coworkers and less at home with us. That's when my mom had enough. After a few discussions, my mom felt it right to leave. A couple of weeks later, she moved in with another man. Everything she taught me, from my beliefs and values to my character and honor, all broken in one selfish act that I didn't and still don't completely understand. After that, I was forced to interact with my dad, which to me was a very scary thing. He was the disciplinarian, the enforcer. I didn't know my father at all, and I'm still learning today. After some counseling and breaking down communication barriers, I soon grew to love my father. We have a pretty sweet place now, just the boys kicking it at home. Through the divorce and everything that came with it, my dad soon became saved, and he doesn't drink like he used to at all. Since all that, he's tried really hard to have a relationship with me and my little bro. Looking at him now, you would never guess the past that he's had. He's one of the kindest and helpful people you will ever meet. I love my dad. My dad is my hero. About a year ago, I decided to finally involve myself in the high school life. I began partying and doing drugs. I lost my virginity my sophomore year, so sex was still something special, but no big deal, right? I went to a party and drank and smoked more than I ever have before. A lot of people don't think men can be raped. I do. I was given some pills by a gal at the party. Or more like she put them in my mouth and put a bead in my lips. I was so gone at that point I didn't even know what was happening. Didn't think anything of it. I blacked out, and when I woke up the next morning, I found myself in bed with her. Never have I felt so hurt, so vulnerable, so used in my entire life. This whole time I've been running from God's calling to lead wholeheartedly to God's will. About 2 months ago, I decided to stop that life and finally do what I knew I was supposed to do. I'm not perfect, and to be honest, it's a daily struggle. There's been times where I've still gotten high or drunk, but I love God with all of my heart, and right now, my struggles are my addictions. My addictions with drugs, with irresponsibility, my addiction to running, and my addiction of being afraid of myself. My name is Tyler James Richards, and I am a man after God's own heart.